If you're a midlife woman and you've noticed that you've had trouble losing weight or you put weight on, you don't know why, can't get it off despite how much you exercise, despite the diets you're on, well, you need to listen to this episode because it might have something to do with your immune system and your hormones. This is Wellness by Design. I'm your host, Jane Hogan, and my guest today is Becca Chilczenkowski, and she's an expert in women's health, and it's her own journey that took her there. So we have this really lively discussion, and she lays out the steps, the order in which you would need to start getting your body to heal so that it's really the immune system, and then the immune system can heal, and then the other things, the metabolism, the weight loss resistance, it takes care of itself and you get energy again. Doesn't that sound great? Yeah, I think so. All right, let's dive in. I'll see you inside. Becca Chilczenkowski, welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, when I first heard about you, I thought this is really intriguing, some of the connections you've been talking about. And I think the audience is really going to enjoy it. So, first, let's hear about what took you from your previous life into the life that you're living now and the people that you serve now.
Yeah, I mean, all of us have a story, right? And I love stories because I think they can give you the picture in your mind of understanding health at such a different level. So much easier than science. Science is boring. So I love telling through stories. But my story, is kind of interesting because I grew up overweight my whole life. I was always like the chubby kid growing up, which I'm sure there's some deeper trauma I need to work through at some point with that. But I got into college and I was an athlete all through my life, even though I was, a little bit chubbier than all the other kids, a little bit bigger than all the other kids. And I played two sports in college and I never could lose weight. And so after college, I actually found CrossFit and I found the paleo diet at that time because I got into CrossFit like before it became a big thing. I was in around like 2010, I want to say, is when I started CrossFit. And I became very competitive in it. And in about a year and a half, I lost 50 pounds following the paleo diet and doing CrossFit. And, I always say the first time you really diet and, changed all of the things, it typically works. And I think every woman knows that. Like the first time they followed that diet, that it worked, they think that's their answer forever. And I competed in CrossFit for a long time, probably about 3 years of I quit my job type competing. Like I quit my job at Allstate. I was an actuary at Allstate and I went and managed a CrossFit gym. And I was training for the CrossFit Games actually, and I ruptured my Achilles. So it was, kind of a career ending injury. And at the time, my husband and I wanted to have kids, but I had no period. So I had gotten very, very lean competing in CrossFit, and I was kind of ignoring a lot of the symptoms that I was dealing with, even though, because I looked good. I was like, oh, but I have almost abs and I have big biceps and I look the part, but I was constipated and I was tired and moody and all the symptoms. And I didn't have a period because I had gotten too lean. And so we went through IVF, all the things, had my son, and then I tried to get back into CrossFit after my kid. And it worked a little bit, but symptoms started piling on really fast because I had this new stressor of a child in my life and I was running a business and all the things. And so I had a period I remember really vividly where I had lost a lot of, the baby weight and I felt pretty good other than my fatigue. I wasn't sleeping very well. I was constipated, but I had lost weight, right? And so I was ignoring a lot of those things. And then about 2 to 3 weeks span, I gained 15 pounds and I did nothing else. I was not eating differently. I was not working out differently. And it's like my body just filled with water and I couldn't stop it. And it just kept coming on week over week. And I was freaking out, of course, because I was like, I'm not doing anything. And if anyone's ever gained 15 plus pounds in a very short period of time, like you literally look, your face is all puffy, everything, you just look waterlogged because you are. If you gain weight that fast, I can promise you it is not body fat. You have gained, you're swollen.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about how that happens. But the weight gain could not come off. And when I reflect back at that time, I was coaching nutrition in a lot of CrossFit gyms. So I was doing challenges at the time, kind of coaching macros and exercise recommendations. And most people would respond pretty well, but there was this population of people that were all about late 30s, early 40s women that wouldn't respond to calorie deficits. And they were following the plans and they were doing everything I was asking them to do, but they were like, I'm not losing weight. And a lot of them were gaining weight, actually, trying to do these calorie deficits. And that plus my own journey is ultimately what made me go and find solutions. Because I was going to doctors' offices, thyroid was fine, all my labs were fine, right? The whole story that everyone goes through, everything looks fine. And
But
I
you
didn't
know
have
you're not fine.
I was not fine. No, I was not. I didn't have a diagnosis either. And I think, a lot of the women that we work with, SIBO, autoimmune conditions, all of these things, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a quote unquote diagnosis. I was just blah. Like I was all the thing. It was autoimmune-ish. I say like I was swollen, I was tired, I was constipated, I was bloated. I couldn't deal with like a lot of foods I couldn't eat because I was developing all these food sensitivities. And so that's what kind of led me down the functional medicine path and the, holistic health path
Yep.
because I wasn't getting answers everywhere else. And so fast forward 5 to 7 years now, and I have been able to obviously help myself find health and vibrancy again. And now I work in this population of women that I used to not be able to help. They were the ones that stumped me, and they have become the population that I serve the most, which is that menopause age range, because at that time of your life, your immune system tends to get triggered very easily
Hmm.
because of the hormone fluctuations that happen. And I'm sure we'll dive into that. But that's kind of ultimately my story. It's crazy because at the time of competing in CrossFit, I was like 160, 165 pounds, and I was super muscular and all the things. And now I'm even less than that, healthier than that, happier than that. And it's easier. And it's all because of the immune system and how you learn to work with the immune system, not against it, and not trash it. Doing all the things that we're told to do to lose weight, exercise more, eat less, stress more, right? So that's a little bit about my journey. It's a long one, but we're here now.
I do hear this from people, not necessarily the people that I work with because they're coming to me for a reason with pain, but other people that know that they'll say, like women in perimenopause, menopause, saying, I just started gaining weight and like it doesn't matter how much I exercise, it's just not coming off. And they're just at their wits' end about it. And it sounds like you were there, although at a younger age, but you were having these symptoms that maybe you didn't recognize at the time, but now you do recognize them as the immune system being triggered. So let's go
Absolutely.
down that road. When did you realize that there was an immune system component?
Oh, yeah. So probably a couple of years ago. So the crazy thing is that even though I was younger, what was I creating with all of that exercise? A low hormone state, right? Because we know when you overtrain and chronically undereat, you create a menopausal state, as in low hormones.
I,
And
yeah, I never thought about it that way, but that is it. Yeah.
and that happens postpartum a lot of times too, when women tend to see triggering and on top of the stress of postpartum. And there's these times in our life that we kind of create this menopausal state coming on and off birth control. Because being on birth control creates basically what? A menopausal state, being in low hormones because your body is not producing them. Off of birth control, you get this huge fluctuation and resurgence of hormones. Dieting, chronic dieting, you get up and down of low hormones, and then perimenopause and menopause. And so, what a lot of people don't realize is that low estrogen levels trigger the immune system. So, our immune system has estrogen receptors all over it. And a lot of women may not go into perimenopause completely sick or unwell, but they're probably not optimized, right? Like we're probably dealing with some high stress. We've probably been dieting. On average, females diet starting at the age of 13 twice a year
Hmm.
until they're in their 60s. And so what I think happens too is most women by the time they hit their 30s are just chronically dieting. They don't really come out of a diet. They don't reverse diet. They don't eat more for a period of time. Like they're just chronically there. And the thing about a metabolism that starts to slow down is that not only is weight loss harder because your metabolism is adapting to this low calorie, stressed out, chronically stressed out state, but food stays in the system longer and blood sugar stays around longer. And that creates what we call oxidative stress, or basically this inflammation. And that inflammation is kind of the slow creep. And so you don't see it maybe how I saw it of like, whoa, huge trigger, 15 pounds in a month. But people are like, I gained 15 pounds this year. And it came on slow, but now I'm seeing the scale and I'm like, whoa. And then my gut started feeling not great. And maybe I'm dealing with bloating or food sensitivity issues. And I'm dealing with this brain fog, or I can't remember things. I can't sleep well through the night, or I'm having skin irritations, right? It's all of these weird symptoms that seem almost unrelated. And that's because they're all being driven by an underlying piece, not just a specific organ. It's not like, oh, it's just my thyroid, or oh, it's just my liver. It's the immune system, which can affect the entire, like, point to your immune system. It's everywhere,
Everywhere.
right? And so the thing about this slow chronic dieting period that so many women deal with is it basically just causes this creep of oxidative stress and inflammation buildup, which then triggers and irritates the immune system. And then perimenopause hits, and now we're going on crazy fluctuations, and it's triggered even more. And so that's where we start to see, and this is something that, was brought to my attention and understanding a couple of years ago from one of my mentors, Vince Pitstick, but it is this insane overactive immune function. He calls it OID. It's also known as immune mediated inflammatory disease in the research. And it's essentially, again, not technically a diagnosis, but it's this explanation for all these symptoms that don't have an explanation. It's like, I can't get everything to calm down. I get one symptom to calm down, another one pops up. I get better for a couple months, and then I get worse again. And it's this up and down and up and down. And a lot of women gain weight during it and they can't lose it because it's not body fat. It's not a calories in, calories out. It's inflammation. They're swollen. And
Mhm.
so that's where a lot of people find me because, yes, they're focusing on the weight, but there's so many other things going on. And it all comes back to how that immune system is overactive.
Wow. So how would a woman know if this is the case for them? Like is
Oh,
this an immune regulated thing happening?
yeah. So there's a couple things. One, I see hormone resistance, and that is not only sex hormones, but like insulin and leptin resistance. So we always run fasted insulin on our blood work with our clients because insulin will start to get dysfunctional way before blood sugars do. So your blood sugars can actually look normal and even optimal for 6 to 14 years when insulin resistance is brewing underneath the surface. And you can actually be full blown insulin resistant and still not see it in your blood sugars right away. So we always look at insulin and leptin because if insulin is resistant, then we often see leptin resistant. Leptin is basically your fat burning hormone. Leptin triggers lipolysis, fat oxidation, and fat burning. So if you don't have insulin functioning right, you don't have leptin functioning right. And then we can't burn body fat. So that's the first thing. Weight loss resistant, obviously, I talked about that. Most women in this place, they cannot lose weight. They diet, they don't overeat. They're the ones eating 1,200 calories a day and not losing. And we know that that is often related to this. Autoimmune is common in this case. So obviously, if the immune system is really active for some people genetically, predisposition wise, they develop autoimmunity. And that can look different for everyone. Obviously, in your case, the rheumatoid arthritis. In someone else's case, it might be lupus. It might be, Sjogren's. It could be a bunch of different things. It's kind of
Yeah.
Hashimoto's. It's like, where is your weak link in the body, right?
Yeah.
And then we see skin irritations. So like eczema, psoriasis, hives, histamine responses. And what we've seen actually in research, believe it or not, is they weren't trying to do this, but they were working on immune-based medications. And they were basically trying to shut down certain immune pathways. And when they would shut down certain ones, people's eczema would get better.
Hmm.
And people don't often think eczema is an immune related issue. It is
Yeah.
absolutely an immune related
Yeah.
issue. And so skin irritations is a big
Yeah.
one.
And hair loss goes along with that too, right?
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
if people don't think that hair loss is a skin issue, is an immune issue.
Huge, yes. Hair loss and chronic hair shedding is common with with this type of condition. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we'll see anxiety, like unexplained anxiety and brain fog, and just like chronic fatigue. People are just exhausted all the time. Um, they don't get sick often. So this is an interesting one because your immune system, I explained the immune system, it kind of has two parts to it. Like think of like a donut. There's
Mm-hmm.
like an immune system that's in the donut, and then there's also a different immune system that's inside the donut hole. And so even though the immune system's super active, you might look, if you've ever gotten a GI map test, your secretory IgA might be low. Your white blood cells might be low because it's depleted at this time. There's certain markers that show depleted, even though the immune system's just cranked everywhere else in the body. So when you think of getting this cold or the flu, you might not get acutely sick. You just don't feel good all the time. Like it's just that blah, right? That I explained in my situation. I just felt blah, like I had no energy or vitality. We also see chronic on and off gut issues because when the immune system's overactive, it causes an overgrowth of commensal bacteria. So
Yeah.
you get this, again, SIBO. SIBO is not a gut problem, it's an immune problem.
Yep.
And so people try and eradicate bacteria and they try and do all these things. And it's like it got a little bit better and then it got worse again because it's not a gut problem,
It's not a root cause, it's a symptom.
not a gut problem, right? And then the last thing a lot of times, so they might have EBV, Lyme, CMV, like all of those things. And then the last thing is they've done things that haven't worked.
Right.
They've done programs, they've worked with other practitioners, they've done all of these things, and they haven't gotten to the root issue.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that autoimmune-ish, like they might not have an autoimmune, but it's like the symptoms of an autoimmune. And so
Mm.
there's really not, again, a diagnosis. It's like if you check the box on three or more of the things I just said, like this might be something that's going on with you.
Mm-hmm. And those blood tests that you mentioned, are they standard blood tests or there's something over and above?
So not many doctors are going to get a fasted insulin or leptin. And the funny thing is, a fasted insulin is $10, $10 to run. But you need a diagnostic code to go run that in a doctor's office. They need to know, and most of these people are not obese. They're, you know, 30 pounds overweight, 25, 30 pounds overweight, but they can't lose it. And they live a healthy lifestyle. How many women I have talked to that come into our practice that eat very healthy, healthier than 90% of the population, that exercise, that manage their stress how they're supposed to, and their A1C is at 5.8, because again, it's the stress, it's the immune system that's causing that stress on the body, that's keeping blood sugars elevated, that's causing you to hold on to weight, that's causing you to feel awful and inflamed. And you're like, but I do everything right.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. It's not
It's not
fair.
fair. Okay, so we talked about how someone would know. So we kind of got a checklist because it's a myriad of symptoms. You can do some of this blood work. So when someone comes to you and they are checking those boxes and you know, okay, this is classic. I know what to do. What do you do? Where do you start?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to start at the end and move my way back to where we started.
Okay.
I think that'll make more sense. So when you think about this oxidative stress buildup that happens in the body, the way that I explain it best is imagine a pipe, right? And we know when a pipe is not taken care of, it kind of rusts. And it starts to rust from the inside and it starts to slowly close off that pipe function, right? That's how I explain oxidative stress. It's like the rusting of the body from the inside. And so what we use a lot of times, and the reason that that starts to become a problem is because when the immune system gets triggered, your immune system is kind of stages, right? You have your innate immune response that happens in the first 72 hours of exposure to something, whether that's a trigger of bacteria or viruses or your stress because you're chronically stressed, right? And so we have this trigger, and the innate immune system basically tags that thing and it calls on T and B cells. T cells gobble up, they create inflammation. They basically do like cell suicide to
Mhm.
protect the body from that unhealthy cell. But when they do that, inflammation happens. And then the body has to clean up that inflammation. The other side, the B cells create antibodies. And we know what happens with too many antibodies, autoimmunity, right? So then there's this last stage, that's the cleaning stage. And the body in a healthy immune system and a healthy function, your cleaning stage keeps up with those T and B cells, right? It can keep up with the inflammation and the antibodies and it helps clear, and it's this nice wax on, wax off. The problem is when there's too many stressors. chemical, emotional, physical, and they cross over. And now we have too much T and B cell activity. And they are just making all the inflammation. And
Yeah.
they're like, hey, come clean up the inflammation. And the macrophages are like, I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And so what happens is these cells become basically what we call senescent cells, where they're zombie cells, and they just hang around and they accumulate and they create lots and lots of inflammation.
Mm.
And this is what I think honestly happened with COVID is I think people died because that guy that ran every day and he was super healthy, everyone thought, and then he got COVID and he died because that accumulation of the immune system was already there. And then the immune system got extra triggered. RAS system, the adrenal system, the
Mm.
kidneys, those were the most affected at that time. So like people don't know this is going on. And that's the biggest problem.
Mm.
And how you clear those old unhealthy cells that are hanging around just spewing inflammation is through autophagy.
Yes.
And it's fasting, ketosis, all of these things that help turn your body's innate built-in cleaning response. We have it. It's there. We just have the problem that we eat all day long and we don't ever fast our bodies. We don't ever work to get into ketosis. And so our body never has the chance to do it. And then we have all these stressors that are going on all the time. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize, birth control triggers and upregulates T and B cell activity and downregulates T regulatory cells, which help clean and calm. And so we have all of these things in our life that upregulate the immune system, and our body can't keep up. And this happens more in females because, what did I talk about earlier? Estrogen
Yeah.
and progesterone. And the progesterone should calm the immune system. Estrogen stimulates it. And we get these ups and downs of estrogen during perimenopause, progesterone declines, so we don't have the calming effect. And so we essentially have this system that needs to be cleaned, and autophagy is the best way to do that quickly. Because what autophagy does is it triggers that AMPK pathway, right? That detox pathway. Most people are stuck in mTOR. mTOR is a sugar burning pathway. You basically have two energy pathways in your body. mTOR, sugar burning, growth of muscle, growth of adolescence into adults, but also growth of unhealthy tissue, of cancer, of inflammation, right?
Yep.
And then you have your AMPK. That's your fat burning pathway. That's what we trigger with ketosis. That's what we trigger with autophagy. That's your detox pathway, breakdown pathway. You want to be able to get into both. You don't want just one or the other. That's where health issues happen. So autophagy basically is the fastest way that you can, one, monitor data with blood sugars and ketones, but two, you can clear those unhealthy immune cells. And so the problem is you can't just jump into fasting. You try and just like head first into fasting and you've never fasted before and you're very unhealthy, you're going to feel real bad. So we build people into that over the time of working with us. And we start with opening up liver and drainage pathways to make sure that what we are trying to get out of the body can get out of the body. And the liver is a huge contributor to glucose issues, to inflammation, to digestive issues. And so we always start with supporting liver and drainage and detox pathways. And then we always shock the gut because we know the gut houses a huge portion of our immune system.
Mm.
And the gut plays a very large role in absorption abilities and digestion and protection of bacteria and viruses via stomach acid. So we kind of go in this order. And during that time of helping with the gut and the liver, we feed. Because if we can stimulate the liver and adrenals and thyroid and feed up, people actually don't gain weight. They lose it a lot of times because you're dropping inflammation, right? But with that feeding, you're also preparing the body to then actually be able to tolerate the stress of autophagy and the stress that
But it is
fasting.
stressful.
It is. And
Yeah.
if you are so stressed and you're like, oh, this lady's telling me to fast, I'm going to go do a 3-day fast, you are going to feel awful. Absolutely. You might end up in the hospital type awful. And so we are very careful with advising on it. I'm like, no, 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 you do not just jump into a fast. And
Yeah.
so we do all of that work kind of leading into autophagy work. But at the end of the day, that is the work that helps truly with these hard cases. And not everyone is this case, right? Not everyone has this immune system dysfunction. But a lot of the people that we talk to, because they've been to other practitioners, they've done all the things, like they're
Mm.
that case, you know? So that's how we handle them.
Becca, what do you do? So you said you start with liver support to open those detox pathways. So what kind of things do you do for liver support?
Yeah, so we use a lot of food. So very Mediterranean based, a little bit lower protein than I think a lot of women are told to eat. Because again, protein slows digestion a little bit. It takes a lot more to break down, right? And we need digestion moving if we are trying to push the liver and liver detoxification. So we do a lot of hydration. We do a lot of fiber because fiber is very supportive of helping with detoxification of the liver and binding to things. And then we stimulate. We use things like methylation supports, B vitamin supports. We use medical foods a lot of times that are kind of like powders with tons of vitamins and nutrients. We basically over support nutrient density and hydration
Mhm.
and systems that need to be supported when you're feeding someone up. So we kind of flip people's diets on their head. They're like, I'm not used, most women, I'm not used to eating this many carbs. I'm not used to eating this much food. I'm not used to, we pulled back stress in
Yeah.
that first couple of weeks. They are not exercising. They are walking. They are doing meditation. They are doing stretching because we're trying to calm the nervous system and allow that to also release what's stored up in the body. And so, a lot of people think like teas, dandelion root tea, ginger tea, things like that. It's kind of this beautiful symphony of support to help for the first few weeks as we feed the client up. Lots of smoothies,
At
things
that
like that.
stage, would you do any like binders or anything like that, or something like that? Do you do that at
So I
all?
don't bring binders in right away usually,
Yeah.
mainly because binders can sometimes cause symptoms for people.
Yeah.
Um, so we're very usually that first phase is just absorption support, so like maybe a digestive enzymes, B vitamins for methylation and detoxification,
Mhm.
medical food like I mentioned, potentially thyroid support depending on the case and what blood work looks like, and then usually sometimes some type of like gut scrubber, whether we use Candibactin BR from Metagenics a lot of times because it helps prevent UTIs too. So there's a couple of myriad of things, and then we use our blood work that we get with the client to kind of determine like, do they also need homocysteine support? Do they need lipid support? Like what other things may their body be in acute need of at that time? But yeah, we don't put binders in until we need to in the second phase.
And you said you, after looking after the liver, supporting the liver, you shock the gut. What do you mean by shock the gut?
Yeah, so we kind of shock the microbiome.
Okay.
And we do that through a couple different ways, but we use eradication agents, we use binders, and we typically put binders in first,
Mhm.
and then we bring in eradication. So think of herbs. I always think of like an antibiotic is like an atomic bomb to the gut.
Yeah,
Herbs are like snipers. Like they get just the bacteria we don't want around, right?
like
And
oil of oregano, that kind of thing.
yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Yep. Oregano, thyme, all those great things. Sometimes we'll use really heavy hitters, but it depends on the case and depends on their symptoms. Make sure people are having bowel movements every day, all that good stuff. And then we also bring in diet variation at this time. So with an immune system that's overactive, this is my first tip to everyone. When you have a leaky gut, right? Most people in a GI system only nutrients and water should get out of the GI system. Your GI system from your mouth to your butt is like a long mucousy tunnel. You don't want things getting out of that tunnel, just nutrients and water. But when we get a leaky gut, food particles get out of that GI system into the bloodstream, which triggers the immune system. And so when we carb pulse and when we do diet variation, we actually change diet every 3 days. So we do high carb, low carb, high carb, low carb. And what that is doing, remember I mentioned that innate immune system is 0 to 72 hours?
Mhm.
If you're changing your diet every few days, that immune system doesn't have the ability to build and
Right.
react. And so
Yeah.
that diet variation helps to kind of calm the immune system, but it also lets us see like, how is this person tolerating these foods? High carb foods versus low carb foods. They also can see like blood sugar wise, how are they doing? It keeps diet variation in there, different types of food. So we do a couple of different things, but we do essentially the 5R, gut protocol process of remove the bad foods, the bacteria, and then repopulate and bring back in good things, probiotics and GI lining support and all those things. So we essentially go through the gut process, but it's like a
Mm.
piece of the whole process.
And are your patients like tracking their results, or how are you tracking their results, how they're
We
feeling?
have
And
trackers, I
yeah.
and I do that because we talk to our patients and clients about every 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks on a Zoom call. And so in between that, one, someone's going to come to the call and all they're going to be thinking about is like probably one, what's going wrong? Because that's how females' minds work is like, what is not good. And we work on that with our intake forms prior to our calls. It's like, what are your wins? Focus on the positives.
Yeah, love
A
wins.
lot of people don't remember how they felt 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And so when you track on a daily basis of like how many bowels are you having, what's your energy, what major symptoms are going on, then we can take the 10,000-foot view and pick up on trends and able to see, how is this person sleeping? Oh, guess what? You gained 3 pounds last week because you slept 5 hours each night and you were super stressed with work. Like, makes sense. And a lot of people just don't step out of their body enough to think about those things, which is why I find coaching and mentoring so helpful. But yeah, we definitely do a lot of tracking.
Yeah, I think you have to. And like you said, it's got to be a daily as opposed to a recollection because our memories are not accurate.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about we said that you said the liver support, shock the gut, start cleaning up the and doing the diet. Anything else after that that you want to share?
Yeah. So at the end of the gut work and kind of alongside the gut work is when we get into a lot of the autophagy work.
Yeah.
So that's where we bring in potentially feast fast cycles where we're building into a fast, right? We don't just jump someone into a fast. It's like if people are used to eating all day, every day, it's going to be hard for them to go 12 hours without food.
Yeah.
And so we start very slow and slowly build that fasting window. And I always remind women, fasting is not about eating less, it's about eating less often. And
Yeah.
so when you're in the eating window, you're still eating. Like, I don't bring calories super low for long periods of time because it absolutely will cause adaptation. And so we kind of build into fasting and watch blood sugars and symptoms and ketones potentially and see, is this person flipping? Are they able to get into that detoxification AMPK breakdown pathway where their body is in this true healing state? And that kind of gives us an idea of like how severely metabolically damaged they are and how active that immune system is. Sometimes we will need to bring in low dose GLP-1s to help really flip the body metabolically. Peptide uses is something we do a lot. So depending on the case and the severity of the case, we need sometimes more potent tools. But yeah, that's really kind of and alongside that, we look at hormone optimization because for females, if you are not on HRT, it's going to be really hard to optimize you metabolically. Not impossible, but in some cases, it gets close to impossible. And so I'm a huge proponent of hormone replacement, but you don't want to put it into a body that is really inflamed and unhealthy, not working on those things because you're just going to create a bigger mess. So we get into the autophagy work and then we try to walk them out of it and make sure that we can maintain the health that that person has gained through the process.
Mm. And is there like a typical length that you work with someone through this process?
Great question. A lot of people always ask, like, can you guarantee results? I'm like, I can guarantee you information to get you results, but I cannot guarantee what you do and how
Right.
you choose to show up for the process.
Exactly.
And so, not what people like to hear. But at the end of the day, I like to see 6 to 9 months of a
Yeah.
client in
That sounds right.
acute work. And I'm talking acute work. Like, we're in protocols, we're deep in it. And then I like to get them out of that and into more of a maintainable place and show them how to use the year and include diet variation and autophagy throughout their year in a healthy way. But yeah, I would say acute phase is usually 6 to 9 months.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so oh my gosh, we've covered so much. It's so interesting too. And I love that I'm a big proponent of fasting as well. And just the whole idea of and people don't really think of eating in this way, but every time we eat, we're challenging our immune system, right? So if we want to give our immune system a break, well, we need to have breaks in our eating, and it's not eating as much as you said. It's just like give it a break, let it restore, especially the gut lining cells replace so quickly. So it's a really great opportunity. Just let it heal. So I love that you do that. Any other methods of autophagy? Like I live in Newfoundland in Canada, and I love cold water plunging.
That's,
That's a form of autophagy, right?
that's, yeah.
It's
Yep.
not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But what are some other ways that people can bring autophagy in?
Yeah, I love cold plunges. They show huge benefit for the nervous system, even though some people believe that they are not good because they think of the immediate response from someone. But
Yeah,
if you look at research and what happens after the immediate response, it calms the immune system.
it
So,
does. I
and the
know.
nervous. Exercise. Exercise is a form of autophagy.
Yep.
If you are in too stressed of a state, though, exercise is a stressor your body cannot adapt to. And that's why a lot of times we manipulate exercise with our clients. And then, sauna and cold therapy back and forth can be really helpful, or, sauna use can be supportive of it. And then sometimes we will use things like mitochondrial supports, peptide supports to help stimulate autophagy for someone. There's a lot of different forms of fasting, and they're like protein fasting, ketosis, true fasting, dry fasting. Like there's so many variations of it that you can really, if someone can't handle high fats because of a lack of gallbladder or whatever it might be, like you can manipulate and still get someone into that autophagy form. But yes, cold therapy and exercise are two of my favorite ones.
Mm.
Um, and those are two that we use often alongside it. But you need breaks from it too. You can't just chronically crank autophagy because that creates its own problems. But yeah, I would say, like you mentioned, something that we have been taught that I wish everyone could be untaught is to eat frequently throughout the day to keep your metabolism stimulated.
What terrible advice that was.
And I think it
So
came from a bodybuilder that was like thinking insulin is going to help me grow. But we know bodybuilders have a shorter lifespan than the rest of us because of that effect on the body of constantly eating. So I would say the number one tip that you can take away from this is if you have not done any type of fasting, trying to go 12 to 14 hours overnight without food, water and maybe some electrolytes, right? And then try to basically slowly spread that more and more and get
Mhm.
yourself into a deeper fast. And it's not chronic. You're not doing this daily. I usually tell people maybe 2 to 3 days a week, try and work into a deeper fast, and
Mhm.
then space your meals out every 3 or so hours and
Mhm.
consume a good dense meal. But like the chronic eating, you are chronically stimulating insulin, which stimulates blood sugars, which keeps blood sugars elevated and inflammation up. And you are not giving the vagus nerve adequate time to push motility and help with digestion. And it's all the things. So, like, that one simple tool can help with so many symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And going along with that is the whole emotional eating part too, right? That people turn to food for a lot of reasons, it could be lonely, could be bored, could be, emotional, right? All of these different angry or whatever. So getting getting hold of that, getting really seeing that and being aware of it is helpful as well.
Yeah.
All right, this has been fabulous, Becca. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure the audience hears?
Uh, you know, I always tell people your body's meant to heal. It's meant to
Mm.
heal itself. It's capable of healing. You have to believe that for it to be able to heal because your mind controls much, much more than you realize.
Yep.
Uh, but there are some hacks and some things like we talked about today that can absolutely expedite that healing process and help you get back to the vibrant self that you are meant to be because you are a masterpiece and that masterpiece just hasn't been given the right love and the right patience and the
Mm.
right tools to be there. But you are not meant to live sick. Your body is meant to heal and it is able to heal. We just have to help it do it.
I love that. What a great message. Okay, so I think you might have said this, but we talked about I always ask my guests, what's one thing someone could do today that's going to begin to initiate healing in the body? So you did talk about spreading out food eating times. So is that what you want to stick with?
Yeah, and I mean, my free giveaway, which will be in the show notes, is the hormone factor guide. That is the first phase we take clients through. So if
Okay.
you want to start and you're like, I haven't been doing fasting, I think it'd be really bad for me to try it right now. That's the first phase we take a lot of our clients through, and it's structured just like we structure it with our clients, and you can start there. And that alone helps a lot of women start to feel better and clear up some symptoms and just get them to a more stable place to where their body might be able to handle the stress that autophagy work can be.
What a great gift. So we'll have the link for that in the show notes or in the description. Check where, however you're watching or listening to this, just check the description. We'll have it there. So thank you, Becca. That's a beautiful gift. Now, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm at the Hormone Queen. So like I mentioned, I work a lot with perimenopause population, so that is my niche on social media. But I'll talk about all things metabolism, HRT, health, immune health on that platform. That's probably where I am the most. We have a podcast called The Health Revival Show. And then my website is fitmomlife.com. That is our practice that we work with women. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
We'll have all those links there too. I love your like matter of fact, let's just get to this approach and the message that you're sharing. So thank you so much for that work and also for being a guest on Wellness by Design today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for being here, and share this with someone who is fitting that description of, stuck, not able to lose weight, and they have inflammation and different things going on. Share this episode with them because you could be changing their life. All right, we'll see you again soon on Wellness by Design.